In business today, three things to know. First, it's Ben Bernanke's last meeting as Fed chair. Is the Fed partially to blame for the emerging markets going over the cliff? Then, President Obama tries to jumpstart his agenda with the State of the Union address. But what, if anything, is in it for business? And they are often more interesting than the game itself. A preview of this Sunday's Super Bowl ads. Arise XChange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. The U.S. Federal Reserve acted as expected today, trimming its bond buying program by another $10 billion. That brings it down to just $65 billion a month. This is what Ben Bernanke's last meeting of the Federal Open Market Committee was supposed to be about. The tapering of the bond buying program began last month, and the general belief is that the Fed is looking to end what is known as quantitative easing by the end of 2014. We'll talk more about the Fed's decision in a moment. Despite expecting the news, the markets reacted poorly to it, along with some weaker than expected earnings news as well. So let's take a look at the numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down nearly 200 points to 15,738. The S&P 500 off 1830 to 1774. And the NASDAQ dropping a little bit better than 1% to 4051. Taking a look at some of the stocks we're watching today. Despite unfavorable weather this season, JetBlue beat analysts' expectations by reporting a higher than expected quarterly profit. Net income coming in at $47 million or 14 cents a share. That topped estimates by a penny. JetBlue closing down to $8.50. Yahoo shares fell by more than 7.5% today after the company reported its overall revenue fell by 6% in the last 3 months of the year to $1.66 billion. The fourth consecutive quarter for the company to have declines in revenue. On Tuesday, Yahoo reported a decline in online advertising prices. That really spooked investors. Yahoo closing at $34.89, down nearly 9%. And the coffee wars are about to get even hotter. McDonald's execs are targeting coffee sales to ramp up sales at the fast food chain. According to reports on the company's strategy for the next 2 years, McDonald's is hoping to increase coffee-driven visits by boosting its line of coffee products, rivaling Starbucks. The company says McDonald's closing at $93.15. McDonald's having a tough time lately. And taking a look at commodities, gold up a solid 18 points today, $12.68. Oil dropping back just 7 cents to $97.34. The troubled emerging markets have a new name, the Fragile Five. That's Turkey, Brazil, India, South Africa, and Indonesia. We like to give everything names these days. All showing signs of stress since the mid-year of 2013, and now in near turmoil as their currencies are collapsing. A recent push by Turkey's central bank to buck up the lira is falling short. Jeff Damaso is with Advisors Investments. Welcome back to Arise XChange, Jeff.
Andrew, thanks for having me.
All right, I want to start with the emerging markets, and we have some time to talk about this because it is a little complicated. We want to kind of explain why people care. So first, what has been driving down the prices of their currencies?
Okay, so driving down the prices of the currencies, these Fragile Five, they've really been driven their growth by foreign investment. And so there's concern about kind of this foreign investment coming out. And so a lot of that was driven to some extent by the Fed, this foreign investment. The Fed was pumping in liquidity and money into the system. That money had to go somewhere. So it ended up going towards the emerging markets. They will issue a lot of bonds. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of demand for those bonds. So there's concern that as the Fed removes this liquidity, that money is going to come back out of the emerging markets. But I'd add that this has been going on for a little while. The South African rand is down about 70% since the start of 2011. So it's definitely they've been taking some big hits. Their central bank also enacted some measures to try and boost up their currency. Hasn't been working, but.
And if you're in those countries, I guess the concern right now is inflation, correct? If the currencies start to collapse too far, prices are obviously going to go up.
Exactly.
You become poorer.
Exactly. Their currency's not buying as much, so what you're importing costs more. So if you're importing oil, energy, food in some cases, it's going to send those prices up. That's a concern for the consumers there.
Some of the political leaders in Turkey and Argentina today said that they are blaming big businesses for driving down the currency and short selling and really attacking their countries. Do they have a valid point, or are they trying to escape some fiscal responsibility?
I think it's probably escaping fiscal responsibility more than blaming big business. they've been growing a lot. These countries have been growing
Well, that's
on
right.
the heels
They've
of
had
this
a pretty good
inflation.
growth.
But they didn't really do anything to try and curb that or make it a little more restrained. And now they're trying to deal with those consequences.
We said kind of at the top of the show that some of this might be the U.S. Fed's fault, and you mentioned it here by pumping so much liquidity. Were these economies in these emerging markets just simply not prepared for the free money to go away?
I mean, not prepared. I mean, everyone knew that it had to go away at some point. I guess right now the concern is whether this spills out beyond just these fragile five. Does it spill out to somewhere like Russia where people aren't really looking, or even beyond the emerging world into the developed world where people aren't as prepared for that as well?
What, in your opinion, then, does a country like Turkey need to do to stabilize?
To stabilize, Turkey's kind of in a tough spot for that right now. Raising the interest rates does help a little bit, but I think it's going to be kind of more structural reform at the economic level.
And of course, there is pain to raising interest rates as well.
There is pain. You've got to try and slow things down a bit.
Their equity markets will fall back a little bit.
Got to bring down inflation. There's a consequence, but I think trying to set the groundwork for further, more stable growth going forward would be a long-term benefit.
Okay, let's talk about the United States then. The Fed did what we expected it to do, was to cut back another $10 billion. Do you think the economics and the economy are supporting that?
I do think so. We've said for a while that the economy has been in kind of a slow growth, not no growth mode, we've said.
Right.
A couple of weeks we were talking about the stair-step recovery. Throughout this entire recovery, the economic signals have been mixed, but still the economy continues to plow ahead. And we've seen just continued signs of that moving forward while giving mixed signals.
Even after what was a questionable employment report, the Fed felt probably that it had to take this step, certainly for its own credibility, do you think?
Credibility is part of the story. In their statement, they do maintain that it's not on a set course.
Right, we're not going to see it necessarily every month.
That's what they say. I think investors are expecting that. So I think the Fed's going to have to see some serious deterioration in some of the numbers to really deviate from that path.
And so basically, it's now Janet Yellen's Federal Reserve, if you will. Yep. What should we expect out of Chairwoman Yellen in the next few months then on this path? Is it going to be the Ben Bernanke path? Is she going to be more cautious? Or do you maybe think that she might get hawkish?
All signs are that she's going to continue on this path. She's been working hand in hand with Ben Bernanke in really kind of establishing this trajectory. They continue to say they're going to be data-driven. Sorry. Right. So we'll see. That's the answer I got for you.
Okay, so that's only the answer, only one you can give, really, because it's all going to be based on what the data is.
Yep.
Let me ask you about the stocks then. We saw a big sell-off today. They knew that there was tapering. When they tapered the last time, the markets rallied a little bit, thinking the economy was stronger. Is this sort of a schizophrenic thinking among traders right now, just not knowing what to do?
Yeah, I think they're trying to balance the two sides of it. On the one hand, tapering suggests a more positive economy. But on the other hand, tapering suggests less liquidity in the system.
That's right.
So which way do you lean on that? It looks like today they're leaning a bit more towards the less liquidity side of things.
Do you think this is a correction, or do you think we're going to see further corrections in the market to the downside this quarter?
This quarter, I mean, the honest answer is that, I don't know. I know we're not supposed to say I don't know, but in a quarter, it's, pretty hard to guess where the market's going. That said, we have been expecting a correction. We've been, communicating with our clients that we think they should, expect some type of pullback. Historically within the market, we've seen a 5% correction 2 times a year on average, and a 10% correction once every year and a half or so.
We do have to remember that we had a tremendous 2013,
Precisely.
A very good run-up, and at some point, some of this money coming out is just profit-taking, I would think.
Yeah, I think there's some profit-taking. There's some rebalancing. As investors look back and get their statements from 2013, they say, hey, I now have more stock exposure than I did a year ago. I need to come back to where I'm more comfortable. So you do see a little bit of that in the beginning of the year as well.
Okay, Jeff DeMasso, thank you for coming back.
Oh, thanks, Andrew.
Appreciate your thoughts. Coming up, did the president's words hit their mark? An analysis of the State of the Union address. You're watching Arise XChange.
Arise News is a different kind of network. We are able to tell our own stories, and we're able to cover stories in a way that other media outlets don't do. We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well. Arise News is a place where we can tell stories in an interesting, factual, inclusive way like no one else in the business can.
Welcome back to Arise Exchange. President Obama delivered his fifth State of the Union address last night. He talked health care, income gap, education, and foreign policy, big themes once again. But businesses are asking, what's in it for them? Grace Marie Turner, the Gallen Institute president, joins us now from Washington, D.C. Grace Marie, thank you for spending a few minutes with us and providing your analysis.
Good evening, Andrew.
So let me just start by basically asking you, did the president's talking about job creation here, but businesses create jobs. Did businesses hear anything that's going to make that easier for them?
I don't think so, Andrea. When he talks about the minimum wage, for example, the president went on the road today to basically try to jawbone companies into increasing the minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. He knows it's going to be difficult to get any legislation through the House of Representatives. And what he doesn't seem to understand is that that pushes more costs, onto employers. That would mean less money for them to invest in new plants, new equipment, more job creation, and research to keep their companies moving forward. So he doesn't seem to understand the basic economics and seems to be unwilling to work with Congress to see if they can do something that really would meaningfully increase jobs and economic growth.
Well, some of the minimum wage argument, though, there's economists who disagree with that, who say that if you give more money to those on the lower end of the scale, they do spend it.
They do, but the money has to come from someplace. Does it come out of higher prices? Yes. In many cases. Does it come out of lower profit margins? Yes. So that investors actually have a lower return. This is not free money. The government looks at this just from its own ledger, and the president says, well, we'll just make the companies do it, as they have pushed many of the costs of Obamacare, for example, onto companies. But what that does is have other ripple effects throughout the economy that wind up with a net zero, where a political agenda is being addressed, but many people are left behind. And I frankly think that's one of the reasons that we see the lackluster economic growth that we have, that we are not getting down to the fundamentals of lower taxes, more regulatory relief, and the kinds of incentives that really can allow businesses to grow rather than more job owners.
In previous addresses, he has talked about reducing regulations that appeared missing from last night.
It was, well, for one reason, because somebody's very likely to come up with this long tower of Obamacare regulations, for example, now up to 30,000 pages, many of which really are going to be imposed on businesses when this employer mandate begins to take effect next year. And employers are starting to plan for that now, Andrew.
Well, let me ask you about health care, because when we speak with small business owners of all sides of the political spectrum, they are concerned because of confusion over this plan. The president, your notes say he spent just 462 words last night talking about health care. Why was that?
It's because I think he wants to move on. I wrote a post last night after the speech saying, is Obama giving up on Obamacare? There were Democrats sitting in that hall last night, desperate for the president to make some sort of case for his law, and perhaps even say that he's willing to work with Congress to make some changes to improve it. He did neither. And you had tens of millions of people that are worried about losing their coverage this year, millions who've already lost it. They got nothing from this speech. The president's sort of making happy talking about some anecdotes. And yes, there are people who need help, but there are millions, tens of millions who are scared about this law, and businesses who see this steamroller of the employer mandate coming at them, who are scared to death. And the president really did nothing to help them.
Yeah, he could probably have defended it by simply saying we're still in the early few months of this, give it some more time, and we have seen some improvement. So that was a little surprising, especially for Democrats who are facing re-election. Let me talk about the idea that he's going to issue more executive orders. This is, to some extent, in his prerogative. Republicans are criticizing him, even though George Bush did this with an art form himself. But what do you think the president's hoping to accomplish by bypassing Congress, and do you think he can legally do so?
I thought it was really an interesting moment when the president basically said that if Congress doesn't send me legislation, I'm going to use my pen and use my phone to get this through. And in fact, and so you had members of Congress then standing up and giving him a standing ovation, especially on the Democratic side of the aisle, saying, yes, Mr. President, go around us. I mean, that's just against the Constitution. He's already made 16 major changes to his signature health care law because it's so flawed, and they've got to fix it before it can even begin to have a chance of succeeding. And here you have members of Congress saying that's fine, go around us.
Well, first, on fixing the health care law or going around it, but doesn't he have to do that? I mean, you just can't just let the thing fail if you're him. He has to do that. And this Congress hasn't exactly been helping him, meaning, he's going around Congress because Congress is getting in the way.
The Congress has passed measures. For example, when he said he wanted to delay the employer mandate, he doesn't have a legal authority to do that. Congress passed the legislation. He said he'd veto it. He's done that a number of times where Congress is saying, we want to work with you in trying to fix this. And the president says, no, I want to do it my way through executive order. Very clumsy, very difficult, and requires thousands more pages of regulation to do it that way, rather than to do it legally through the law in a way that might actually make things better for people. For example, delaying the individual mandate for everybody, which the president is already doing in certain categories. I think Congress would go along with that.
Okay. Grace Marie Turner from Gallon Institute. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Time now for our business ticker. Chrysler and Fiat have a new company name. Fiat Chrysler Automobiles. Although the company's legal home will be in the Netherlands, it will not actually have any offices based there. Instead, Chrysler will continue to operate out of its current home in the Detroit suburb of Auburn, Michigan, while Fiat will remain in its current headquarters in Milan. Its shares will be traded on both the New York Stock Exchange and in Milan. The gasoline substitute butanol, promoted by billionaire Richard Branson, will make its debut at U.S. pumps as soon as next year. Like ethanol, the colorless alcohol can be made from corn, but packs more energy when mixed into gasoline. And now it's getting ready to challenge ethanol's domination of the $26 billion renewable fuel market. Biofuel companies like Butamax and Gevo, where Branson is the second largest investors, are urging more ethanol producers to retrofit their plants for butanol. So remember the name. Nintendo's top executives are taking a pay cut, its CEO taking a 50% pay cut. The temporary reduction in salaries comes amid a dive in profits following disappointing sales of its Wii U game consoles. Eating into the company's sales is the explosion of smartphones and tablets, as well as the popularity of Sony's PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox consoles. The hunt is on for a $6 million violin in Milwaukee. The instrument was taken from violinist Frank Almond, who performs with the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra. On Monday night, during an armed robbery, according to Milwaukee police, a man and a woman tasered the musician and then stole the violin. There it is if you happen to see it, $6 million. Ahead, the town known as Hot Atlanta goes terribly cold. Our favorite person of the day is next. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Well, Arise is the only network that really covers comprehensively the African diaspora. It gives people in other parts of the world of color a chance to know about people here in the United States, us to know about them, and the world to know about us. So it's kind of an educational experience for everybody involved. Getting to know people through stories, through personal stories. You really get a chance to know what people are actually all about, what communities are about. How are we different? But more importantly, what commonalities we all share.
Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Today, that person is Atlanta Mayor Kasem Reed, and frankly, everyone else who lives in Atlanta. 3 inches of snow fell in Atlanta, and the city panicked as if the Martians were attacking. There were nearly 1,000 traffic accidents, and the cars piled up on the road as people fled. First, Mayor Reed blamed the virtual shutdown of the entire city on everyone but himself and the city agencies he oversees. Reed claims the massive traffic pileups were the result of schools, businesses, and other government officials who decided to send everyone home at the same time instead of accepting any blame for Atlanta's crumbling infrastructure himself. Atlantans have compared the chaos to a zombie movie. In fact, that's where they filmed The Walking Dead. People just abandoned their cars in the middle of the road. Some slept in stores. all because of 3 inches of snow. As the snow fell, Atlantans also rushed to the gas station, causing massive backups because you might run out of gas because of 3 inches of snow. And they rushed to the stores, causing food shortages, and again, more traffic jams, all because of
3 inches of snow.
Reed is now urging residents to stay off the roads because clearly they don't know how to drive. And his city hasn't effectively plowed them anyway. And so, Atlanta's Mayor Reed is our favorite person of the day because he could not manage a snowstorm of 3 inches. And all the citizens of Atlanta, they are our favorite people of the day because, well, you've seen the video. Coming up next, which Super Bowl ads will you be talking about Monday morning? You are watching Arise Exchange.
One of the great things about Arise Entertainment 360 is we have this Arise to Your Health segment, which really focuses on the holistic approach of being healthy. So we do everything from working out to juicing to getting in shape by doing fun exercises like bouncing on a trampoline or wearing these bouncy boots on our feet when we're jumping all over the set. We've done karate, we've danced the weight off, we've done just about everything. And of course, I love when we eat on set, but we do it in a very healthy and clean way.
This Sunday, about 1 billion sports fans will watch the biggest football game of the year, the biggest sporting event, to cheer on either their favorite NFL team or just to watch. But even those who couldn't care less which teams win the final Super Bowl, in the final Super Bowl match, the final game of the year, they will watch the world's biggest brands battle it out for the highly coveted best Super Bowl ad. Here to give us a preview of what commercials the audience can expect to see is Horizon Media's Brad Adgate. Brad, welcome to Arise Exchange.
Hey, thank you, Andrew.
So let me
Nice to
talk
be
to you
here.
first about the game.
Yeah.
It's going to be cold. It's the first open-air game played in a cold weather environment. We have having brutal temperatures here in New York. In fact, I'm supposed to go to the NHL Winter Classic tonight at Yankee Stadium, and I'm not looking forward to it. There's already talk that people are not buying the tickets like they used to. And you have 2 teams that, frankly, unless you're in Colorado or Washington, you really may not care about that much. Small market teams. What do you think? Is that going to have any impact on people watching this game?
No.
Okay.
No, I think this will be the most watched Super Bowl ever. And I think actually, well, why? Because I think, first of all, the ratings for the NFL are up this year. You know, Fox, which is broadcasting the game, had its best season ever since it started running NFL games back in 1994. The championship games are up 20% from last year, both on Fox and CBS. I think it's a great matchup, albeit, you know, they're small towns.
And Denver has led the league, so this is a team that should be in it.
This is the best offense against the best defense. Right. This is only the second time in 20 years the top seeded teams in both conferences are playing, and I think it's in New York. I mean, it's the entertainment capital of the world.
The NFL is taking a little bit of a risk here. Do you think it's going to pay off for them?
Oh yeah, you know they are marketing geniuses.
That's what they do. They don't play football.
Yeah,
they market the league.
And they don't really make too many missteps in their decisions. And it looks like the weather is going to be okay. I think it'll be about in the 30s, and it'll be probably not snowing. So I think it'll be a cold weather game, but it's not going to be the ice bowl or freezer bowl.
Why, for advertisers, is this game so important? Is it a return on investment of what is a very expensive spot to buy, and I'll ask you that about what the cost, or is it just that they have to be there?
Well, I don't think they have to be. I think they want to be there. I just think, first of all, it's the highest rated show. It's the highest rated show across every demographic. You know, a great thing is, what's the highest rated kid show of the year? And you think it's something on Nickelodeon. It's not. It's the Super Bowl. Highest rated teens, whatever market break that you're looking at. So the second thing is the ads are being seen. I mean, people see the ads. 50 million women watched the Super Bowl last year. I mean, and they couldn't tell you from a nickel defense to
I know plenty of women who are huge football fans.
But a lot of them are watching it because of the ads.
And women do have the buying power in the household.
Yes, they do. And you see a lot of car ads. I think this year you always see some trends. This year there's a lot of automotive ads and there's a lot of celebrity ads.
Do you think you could get a sense of the economy by looking at who is advertising on the Super Bowl?
I think you can get a sense of the economy based on when the Super Bowl sold out. And this year the Super Bowl sold out 2 months before the game.
What are they getting for a 30-second ad this year?
Well, it's been reported about 4 million.
Right.
4
wow.
million
So that would be a record?
Oh yeah. Last year was about 3.7, 3.8.
Okay, let's talk about some of the ads. We're going to start showing you, this is Scarlett Johansson for SodaStream. A little controversy, which never goes a long way in helping advertisers, frankly. She's been criticized for whatever reason because SodaStream is an Israeli company. Let's take a look at it and then get your thoughts.
Like most actors, my real job is saving the world. Start with plain water, add bubbles, mix in the perfect flavor. Look, a soda that's better for you and all of us. Less sugar, less bottles. If only I could make this message go viral.
You doing it, Scarlett. Yeah, you doing it. Changing the world, one sip at a time.
Sorry, Coke and Pepsi.
All right, so a ad where a celebrity is making fun of herself, a little bit effective?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, she doesn't do too many ads.
That's true.
You know, I mean, so you think of, so I think there'll be a connection. Maybe you see a Scarlett Johansson movie, maybe you'll think of SodaStream. The other thing that's interesting is she mentioned Coke and Pepsi. SodaStream asked that this ad run in the fourth quarter after the Coke and Pepsi ad. You know, Pepsi is going to be the sponsor of the halftime show, so they want to, I guess, have the last word in the soda, in the new cola wars.
A little bit of a risk, because if it's a blowout, people leave in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but it hasn't been. You know, 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls have been very close. The blowouts from another decade.
By the way, we're going to preview more, but do you think it's a good idea for them to preview these ads?
Yes, I do. I absolutely. I think it's a great idea because, you know, it helps pay the $4 million ads. A company like Volkswagen has had over 150 million views of their Super Bowl ads over the past 3 or 4 years, before and after the game. Well, you actually see a lot more after, you know, on Monday. You know, some companies want to surprise, like Chrysler with Clint Eastwood or M&M a few years ago, like to surprise people, but others put it on before.
Brad, let me show you a regular, of course, at the Super Bowl. This is Anheuser-Busch. All right, well, we didn't see the Clydesdales there.
No. But we will.
We will, I'm sure. What are they trying to get out of that ad? That's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, I think, right, it's a change in their logo, and they're going to. You saw a little bit of it there. It's called the perfect beer for whatever waits. So, in other words, they're changing. You know, it's a great opportunity if you want to reposition the brand, change what you want to say, your tagline. You know, maybe a brand extension, things of that sort. And again, there's an example of having a celebrity. I mean, this guy was the former governor of California, and he's here pitching Anheuser-Busch. There's one with Don Cheadle. And the other thing is, you know, they teased it in the conference championship games with him playing ping pong. You know, in those games, they had a little teaser and wait for the ad on the Super Bowl. And this year, Anheuser-Busch will have 5 ads that'll be in about 3.5 minutes of time, which is a little less than what they did last year.
And of course, advertisers sometimes make some undercurrent statements. This is a Cheerios ad with a racially mixed family.
Mom.
Yes, honey?
Dad told me that Cheerios is good for your heart. Is that true?
Says here that Cheerios has whole grain oats that can help remove some cholesterol, and that's heart healthy.
All right, so you combine both cuteness with maybe a little bit of a message?
Yeah, well, you know, I think it's kind of a step out. This is something you want to be part of the discussion. This is something that people did talk about the first time. This is the second ad they've done with this family. It's actually Cheerios' first ad in the Super Bowl. So I think they'll get a lot of recognition because it's something that stands out in a cluttered advertising environment. Let
me ask you, what is the risk for advertisers that they have a terrible ad, and does that really hurt them long term?
You mean like Groupon?
That's very good.
Does that come to mind a few years ago?
That's 2 years ago.
Well, that says it all. I mean, they had a lot of explaining to. I mean, it got some buzz, but
that's right.
It was
not
a lot of
right
negative
reasons.
buzz. Like, what does Groupon do? And of course, they're not. You know, they're not in the conversation this year.
Oh, interesting. So they decided to sit it out.
Well, yeah.
So a bad ad in the Super Bowl could do more harm than a mediocre ad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want to talk mediocre ads. I mean, but you know, you see a lot of movie trailers. I mean, those things are, you know, it's not a lot of creative that you're spending on it. You're running trailers, and this year there's not that many of them. But in previous years, we've had a lot of studio ads.
Okay. Well, on Monday morning, what do you expect the results are going to be for the most part?
Well, I think we'll see a lot of talk about car ads, and I think a lot of
some of the car ads are usually very good.
The Terry Crews with the Muppets looks pretty cute. There's a couple of cute ads with Hyundai. There's one with Jaguar, first-time advertiser with Sir Ben Kingsley, and it looks like a feature film with all these British actors on why they play these evil people and things of that sort. So it should be fun.
All right. Brad Atgate, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Andrew.
All right, that's Arise Exchange for today. Let's take a final look at the numbers. Dow Jones Industrial Average and the NASDAQ and S&P 500 all sliding today after the Fed announced another $10 billion of tapering. I'm Andrew Schmertz. See you tomorrow.